All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first big winter conference. Today, we're going to hear a talk from Dr. Cynthia Sutherland. Dr. Cynthia Sutherland is a multi-award global cybersecurity leader serving as Amazon Web Services Global Automotive Security Assurance Lead with a 16-year cybersecurity career across multiple industries. Prior to AWS, she was the first senior executive to serve as a Chief Information Security Officer for FEMA, where she led integration of cybersecurity into America's emergency management systems. She came to FEMA from serving as a Joint Chiefs of Staff, CISO, where she led the integration of cybersecurity into military weapons for the US, 23 countries, and NATO. Her passion is professional development and mental health of the cybersecurity profession. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Sutherland.
Awesome. Thank you, James. Can you hear me? Everything coming in okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Awesome. Awesome. Hi, everyone. As James said, I'm Dr. Sutherland, and I am super excited to be here today with you guys. And, where do I begin? I started my journey to get to this event, I'll say, before Blacks in cybersecurity even existed. In 2014, I was 6 months into my role as a new government employee serving as the branch chief for a newly formed security operations branch within a newly formed defense organization that was responsible for consolidating 23 networks and resources into a single IT organization with classified and unclassified environments. Now, from a cyber perspective, the program was immature with no processes, no procedures, tools were minimal, and they had the ones that we did have had minimal coverage to no coverage of the networks. Plus, I inherited a discouraged and underutilized staff, which no one knew how to handle. And as I designed and implemented two new single security architectures for both the classified and unclassified environments, I experienced significant amounts of sexism and racism. This pressure of this adversity drove me to a good friend in HR who I told him that I was quitting. I said, look, if I'm going to have to deal with this kind of stuff, I might as well go get paid more money for it. He was like, Cynthia, you know you can't do that. You have to stay here. And I was like, why? He said, Cynthia, you have to stay and take one for the team. And I said, I'm tired of taking one for the team. He said, Cint, you have to, because one day you'll become representation for people who look like you. They will see you and think that they too can overcome this level of adversity. So you have to take one, stay and take one for the team. So I stayed. And then about 8 years later, I became the first senior executive for CISO at FEMA. Now, two quick facts. It typically takes about 23 years to become an SES. And only about 1.5% of the federal government's senior executives are Black women. So I will say that in itself was a journey. And serving as the CISO was fun. I loved the mission. Plus, FEMA and DHS leadership supported my vision for creating FEMA's first holistic cybersecurity program. I established and started great work to improve security operations for FEMA, and we were able to do great things like provide the American people with $2.6 billion in COVID funeral assistance. Now, that was great, but my passion has always been in securing embedded systems, whether it's satellites, HVAC systems, missile launchers, cars, jets. I love reverse engineering the design and the code to find the right cybersecurity fit for them. And this passion is what drove me over the last 25 years in IT and 16 years in cybersecurity. Now, some of my accomplishments include being the first to secure and receive the first security accreditation for the SCADA system of the largest low-rise building in the world, the Pentagon. Then as a CISO, For the Joint Staff, I became the first U.S. rep and first woman to serve as the global chair to lead the MSAB. And the MSAB is a multinational security authority that accredits weapon systems that cross national boundaries. And as the chair, I led these countries and NATO in integrating cybersecurity into numerous military exercises and initiatives. And then as the emerging industries lead for AWS, I led the development of our first automotive security assurance program to help lead our customers with integrating compliance requirements into autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, electric vehicles, the new digital customer buying experience. And I will tell you, none of these feats were easy. I had to address biases against women, African Americans, and against Americans. I climbed the ladder of IT doing everything from help desk to server ops, to network engineering, to security engineering, digital forensics and malware reverse engineering, to becoming a cyber policy developer and an auditor, to becoming a SOC chief and the CISO. And when I reflect back on my 8 years as an Army cyber soldier, 8 years as a federal contractor, 8 years as a government employee, and now my 1.5 years in private industry, I notice how people talk about cybersecurity from the perspective of technology, cyber attacks, and salary, but what they don't talk about is what it takes to get in, climb the ladder, and be successful in the field. And navigating my career has provided me experiences that gave me insights, which I'm here to offer you. So these insights allow me to give you tips for getting in, staying in, while managing your mental health. So today I'll navigate you through 3 things. We'll talk about the CIA pillars for a successful cybersecurity career. We'll talk about how mental health is a security concern and how representation does matter in cybersecurity. And when I'm done, I hope you walk away motivated to stay in and manage your mental health. So let's jump in. Now, there are 3 pillars required to building a successful cybersecurity career: competency, individuality, and awareness. And to be successful in cyber, you need all 3 pillars. You cannot have one without the other. These pillars are then built from the inside out, starting with yourself and working towards your relationships with others. So we'll start this dialogue off with diving deep into the C, competency. This pillar speaks to how to build your confidence when you are entering the profession or when you are feeling lost in the profession. So to enter the cybersecurity profession, you need what we'll call the golden ticket. Who remembers how the golden ticket allowed Charlie entry into this magical place with all of these unique people with unique personalities and skill sets? And cybersecurity, that golden ticket is that piece of paper that you get from either an education or training program that you have to get. And you have to get the golden ticket that's right for the cyber field you want. Now, let me pause here, and I see that there's a question. How did you break through the glass ceiling level? We'll get to that, Devin. If you guys continue to post your questions in the chat, and if I need to go back to some previous slides, I will. All right. Now, so you have your degree or your certification, and you think, I know the technology. I'm good. I got this. Now I'm going to ask you to pump brakes, because you may have the knowledge, but applying that knowledge takes tact. And this is where your abilities come into play. See, in cybersecurity, it's all in how you apply your knowledge to uncover the root cause when you're challenged. And as you guys know, in cybersecurity, you will be challenged. And when you're challenged, you should know how to find the root cause. So let me give you a troubleshooting technique for identifying the root cause for cyber issues. Now, as you know, cybersecurity is the application of policy, processes, technology, and people. And when you come upon any issue which you can't resolve, I ask you to take a step back and ask yourself, is this a policy issue? Now, unless you or them are above the law, compliance with policy and law is a must. So you educate those that you're interacting with, you educate them on the policy, and then if they still have problems, let them argue with the lawyers or your senior executives. Next, you ask, Is it a process issue? This goes back to basic process engineering. So you ask, is there an issue with the input, the activities performed on the input, or the output? Is there an issue with the quality or the quantity? Now, you go through and you look at that and you say, okay, it's not a process issue. So then you ask, is it a technology issue? Well, tech is here to automate something that used to be manual. So is there an issue with what is being automated, or something that is not automating correctly? Or is there the automation of something interrupting another piece of software? And if it's not a policy, a process, or a tech issue, then it's a workforce issue. And workforce issues are between your competency and personality. And if you find that the person that you're challenged with doesn't understand the policies, processes, or technology, then your role is to educate them. But when you've troubleshooted through all these issues and you realize now this issue is a personality issue, well, that's when it's a management issue. If you can't squash out the conversation directly with the person, then you take it to your manager, you follow your HR procedures for handling those types of conflicts, because it is what it is when you're dealing with personalities, right? And you have to have an avenue to move through that while still performing your role. So this technique has saved me lots and lots of headache and lots of time by stepping through each one of them in that manner: policy, process, technology, and workforce. Now, the last competence element is the skills you gain from applying your abilities. And the number one skill you will need is using and controlling your voice. You have to know when to speak, how to speak with authority, and when to just sit and listen. You can have every acronym behind your name for a certification and be updated on all your tech skills. But if you don't know when to listen or how to speak with authority, becoming successful will be even harder. See, in security, and especially cybersecurity, you're attempting to control how humans operate in an environment. And some people don't like being told what they can and cannot do. So, as a cyber professional, your job is to help them understand the why and how of cybersecurity. And this pillar serves as that foundation for navigating you and them through the cyber profession. Now, let me give you an example of what happens when you get a cybersecurity job from a hookup and you aren't competent in cybersecurity. See, I inherited an employee who was in a lead cybersecurity position. And according to the office culture, this person got this position based on who they knew. So one day, this person came to me and said, "Ma'am, no one respects my authority and they won't do what I ask." So I asked this person, and it was a federal DOD employee. I said, "Do you know United States Code Title 10 for Armed Forces?" They said, "No." I said, "Well, what about Title 40 or 44 for federal systems?" They said, "No." I said, "Well, do you know DOD 8000 series like 8500, 8510, 8540, 8570? They said, "No." Then I asked this person, "How do you expect people to respect your authority if you can't speak from the authorities?" And so in DOD, in the federal space, if you don't know your authorities, you are operating without top cover, and that will burn you every time. And people will not respect you because you don't know what you're talking about. So I explained to this person that they needed to go and educate themselves. So this person proceeded to review the policy and educate themselves. Now, throughout my career, people have asked me different types of questions to address their professional ailments. So as the doctor, I prescribe a course of action for some of the most common cyber workforce issues. And symptom number one, when you're feeling lost in the profession, I prescribe that you reset your foundational knowledge in the field through an accredited education program or training program. And one thing that I've learned in cyber is that if you don't use a skill, you will lose a skill. And every now and then, it's good to reset your competency. This allows you to rebuild your confidence in the profession. And when you feel competent, you feel confident and you perform better. So I say, develop your journey and take the next step towards resetting your foundation. Next, I will say find you a mentor, because you don't know what you don't know. Once you find a mentor, you want to build trust with them. And if they're a good mentor, they will invest their time and reputation for you. And if they don't, then find you another mentor. I've had 6 mentors in my life. Black women, Black men, white men, and they've helped me on things that were cyber related, and some were not cyber related. Some were just how to handle the profession while being a parent, while being a child of God, while being a senior executive, or just being a Black woman in the field. So I would say find a mentor that's right for you. And once you have your competence intact and you have your good mentor, you are part of the way of being successful in the profession. Now, next element is when you have the competence to be effective, but you still feel inadequate, or that you just feel that you're just not good enough. You have this gut feeling that you're missing something. And I will say this feeling is called the imposter syndrome. And I will tell you, from a female perspective, this is very common in highly successful women. And I could go into that, but that's a whole other conversation. But what I will say is whenever you're dealing with the imposter syndrome, I ask you to assess your squad, because iron sharpens iron. So one person sharpens another. So I ask you to reassess or build your squad by one, always preferring collaboration over competition. You'll go so much further in the profession because you can always learn more from others, right? Number 2, growing your squad with people who are not afraid to be your mirror and give you constructive criticism. These people will also keep you grounded while building you up. And one of the most important things I found is that they're also the squad of people who will check on you when things are the quietest and the busiest. Now, the last one is find you a mentor, because again, you don't know what you don't know. And let me tell you, you cannot put a price on a mentor or a boss or a company who takes interest in your career. I had this one employee who wanted to transition from being a travel agent into cybersecurity. So me and my boss gave her a chance. And we were teaching her and molding her. And not even 6 months later, she came to me and said she was leaving because she found a job making more money based on what we taught her. And I told her, but you're missing some of the fundamental competencies. She said, well, they're offering me more money. I said, yeah, but we're trying to help you get your skills up. We don't want you to flail around out in the industry. You aren't ready. Then she said, well, I need the money. And I said, well, all money ain't good money. And if you leave, you will hurt your development. But if you must, then, hey, you got to go. So she left. And I will say, here we are 14 years later, and she's still jumping from job to job looking for money. See, the ultimate goal of growing your squad with the right people and a mentor is so that you sharpen yourself with people who have the abilities to sharpen you. So I say, find your squad or build your squad. And this symptom was me for a long time. And I tell you that I had to reassess my squad because my imposter syndrome was eating me up. And if you don't have the right people in your corner to mirror you, to be your mirror and tell you that you're being a perfectionist, or to stop messing around with the project, or you're being too hard on yourself, just stop writing and release the daggone book. It's good enough. And I want to say, shout out to my squad of friends, mentees, and mentors, because that's exactly what I needed. Now, these are just some of the recommendations for addressing competency elements and for you to help build and regain your confidence in the profession. Now, the next pillar to success is your individuality, your unique value. What makes you the individual that you are? This is about how do you identify the value that you bring to your team and to your organization. So I ask you, are you aware of your value to your organization? Do you really understand how your role fits in on your team? See, you answer these questions by one. First, embracing the mission of the organization and the customers they serve. See, in cybersecurity, your role is to secure the organization's mission, customers, and assets that support that mission. So you have to know the value that you bring to that mission because it is your job to secure that mission and their customers' data. Next, you want to identify your value to your team, your boss, and your coworkers. See, embracing your role as a member of a team is where you will find your power. See, no one knows everything, and you will not be successful without your team. Your team knows the culture, and some of them even know where the bodies are buried, and they'll bring value to your role. So I ask you to embrace your team by number one, respecting the culture of your environment, and number two, understanding that you don't always need a title to lead. I'll give you an example here. There was a team in my organization where they hired an employee who was very, very, very smart. This developer had been coding since he was in middle school. And the problem was he thought that he was smarter than everyone else on the team. And he proceeded to make his teammates feel stupid and making inappropriate remarks. And so his team complained about him to their boss and to others. And this person missed a couple of key facts in his organization. He didn't know that the culture of his organization was based on teams. If he knew that, he would have not disregarded his teams. And in the end, his team had him removed. So during this pillar, I did not say, change who you are. I did not say, forget your background. I said, know the mission, the customers, and the culture. I said, respect others' value because collectively you will secure the mission. Now, you are a unique person with value, and you should bring that value to your team and to your organization as an individual. But if you feel that your team does not respect you as an individual and the value that you bring, now it's time to reassess your reason for being there. So to close out this pillar, we'll look at a couple of common symptoms. Symptom number one, when you don't feel like you matter in the organization, I say that speak to your manager about this feeling. If you're feeling undervalued, that should be the first person you go to. And if they can't provide you any direction, then find another team. If you still don't feel connected after working for another team, then find another company because you have no value to the success of the company and they're not providing you the value that you need to grow. So I say find a team and find a mission that you can support so that you will feel value as an individual contributor in your overall organization. Next, if you feel that you're unappreciated at work, then and there'll be a couple of those times when you feel underappreciated. And I will say that in cyber, we get overwhelmed with a lot of different activities. We get bogged down with numerous things. And I will say here is learn how to pat yourself and others on the back because the job can be a little overwhelming. And so sometimes your activities may not be appreciated or shown to be appreciated out in public the way you want it to be, but give it time. And then also learn how to pat yourself and others on the back. Now, when you find that you feel overwhelmed in your role, I prescribe that you set boundaries and standards and enforce them to protect your mental space and time. And when your team is aware of who you are, what you bring to the table, most of the time they will respect your value. They will respect the individual that you are. And some will even go to bat for your individuality to ensure that you remain on that team because they don't want to lose the value that you bring. So for me, a couple of years ago, I was dealing with some sexism, some sexist remarks and activities from another minority employee. I went to my boss and explained that I was feeling how I was feeling. I gave him the evidence to support my claims, and he felt that that wasn't founded evidence enough for him. Come to find out a little later, he didn't look at it, but I escalated it and took it to his boss. And I told my skip level boss, that I wanted to leave. And he said, well, why? And I explained to him, I laid out the evidence, and he said, give me 1 week to assess the situation, and I'll get back with you because I do not want to lose you or your team. And I said, great. And he did just that. He showed me that he valued my role in the organization. And see, competence alone will not make you successful. You also must provide that value. And so, because when we think about it, businesses hire smart people to be smart. So to provide value in an organization, you first must be competent, because your competency is the value to the organization. And you should not waste your value on an organization you don't support and doesn't support you or the value that you bring. Now, the last pillar is about who you know, and more importantly, who knows you. Awareness is about identifying what I'll call the moneymakers and the tail waggers of an organization. These are the people that run a company. And awareness is the only way you will be offered an opportunity to show your competency and your individuality. And if you don't walk away with anything, walk away with this. Never underestimate the power of the support staff in an organization. I've seen many people get burned by this one. For example, as an incident responder, SOC chief, or CISO, your relationship with that executive assistant, that secretary, can mean the difference between public embarrassment and a well-formed decision-making. When you need 10 minutes on your senior leader's calendar, if they like you, they will find some time for you on that calendar. And that's what makes them some of the most powerful people in the organization. Now, the other people who you need to be aware of are in this right column. These are the people who can go in rooms that you can't, to speak about your competence and defend your value to the organization. So, to increase awareness around the organization about your competency and your individuality, I need you to know who's who in the company and create relationships. Now, the most common professional ailments that I've heard from an awareness perspective is when you're a new employee and you feel unfamiliar with the culture, the processes, or the people in the organization. And my prescription here is to increase awareness by following at least one of these opportunities. Engage with people to give them more awareness of who you are. One of my favorite things that I've done is going to coffee happy hours or virtual happy hours. Another one I used to love to do is put a candy jar at my desk. I can't tell you how many people I lured to my desk with chocolates, not the cheap chocolates, the good chocolates, because people would get stressed and they're looking for their chocolate fix. So they come to my desk, they get candy, and they'll sit there and eat and talk with me. And one of the things that I've always remembered is that what Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And chocolate is a good feeling. So I say figure out one of these specific activities and leverage them to increase awareness about your value, your competency across the organization. Now, if you don't feel like you can be creative to, create these unique opportunities, I'll say leverage opportunities like using your lunch as a way to network. Don't eat alone at your desk or with the same people all the time, because you limit yourself. I used to do a happy hours at Starbucks with my team. I would pick different functional teams to eat lunch with because I wanted to get to know what they did so I can leverage them for my projects. And I can't tell you how much information I gained with eating with teams that were not in my department. Now, one of the last symptoms I've had is you don't feel like senior leaders notice you. Then I will say engage in more business functions. Volunteer for more business activities, or volunteer for your passion projects, or go to work at least once a week before everyone comes in to prepare for your week. When people know that you're in there and that 1 hour ahead of everyone else, they know your routine, and they know if something pops off, they can come to you. And I can't tell you how many senior leaders did that. early in the mornings, they would know that I'm there and they would come and talk to me. Or I would be in the coffee line and they would be in the coffee line early in the morning. And we would just sit down and talk at Dunkin' Donuts about what's going on with life, what's going on in the office. It gave them an opportunity to get to know me outside of the office. So remember, when thinking about how to make others aware of your value, of your competency, I will say increase the awareness by doing a couple of these activities. Because how can you be successful if no one knows to give you an opportunity? Now, collectively, this CIA framework is a huge key to being successful, but there's another aspect of cybersecurity that no one talks about. And in cybersecurity, like I said, you're trying to attempt to control an environment and people via policies, processes, and technology. But the one thing you cannot 100% control is people's biases. Biases exist in the workplace and people respond to security based on their biases. So if you cannot 100% control others, you can 100% control yourself. So to be effective at these three pillars, you must also know yourself. See, self-awareness is key to being effective in cybersecurity. Being aware of you is key to understanding what you're willing to give up and not give up. How will you, it also speaks to how you will respond when certain tasks come across your desk and high pressure situations. For example, say you are part of an incident response team or a digital forensics team. And if you are a parent, how do you feel about handling a child pornography case? Or if you're a sexual assault victim, how do you handle evidence from a sexual assault case? Now, another situation I had was in 2015 when my network was hacked. It was all over the news. And when it came time to respond, we had to create shifts. Military and contractors worked 12-hour shifts, but our government had an option to volunteer to come in or not. And some of them said, no, I'm not working these 12-hour shifts. I'm going to do my regular shift because these are my boundaries and my standards that I have with my family. And that was okay. Now, these are some of the things that you want to identify. These items dictate how you respond in high pressure situations. And most organizations have very reactive cybersecurity programs. So they stay in high pressure situations. And that's why I say mental health is a security concern. When you add the pressure of the position, biases from others, your culture and your background, plus the requirement to respond to high pressure situations, this can lead to mental burnout. So to be effective in cybersecurity, I ask that you take the time to do a self-awareness journey. I ask that you take the journey to identify your unconscious biases, identify and kill those negative thoughts that you have about yourself. I ask that you set boundaries and standards to maintain your mental space, and then identify what are those trade-offs based on your new views, your new boundaries, and your new standards. Because if you aren't prepared in these high pressure situations, your mental health will suffer. And as a cyber leader, I've seen mental burnouts and I've seen suicides. And I don't want any of that for you. So I ask, please take your self-awareness journey. Now, my self-awareness journey was the most critical step on my path to success. In 2014, when I made that decision to take one for the team, I started my self-awareness journey because I realized that to stay in cybersecurity, I had to know me. I had to know, why did racism and sexism impact me the way it did? So I started my journey because I needed to know why this triggered me, mainly because my background included suffering under a 60-year generational curse of childhood sexual abuse for 7 years under the age of 10. I was also a teenage mom. I was repeatedly told girls weren't smart and that I would never make it in college. And as a young single mom, I lived on welfare. I changed college majors 2 times, dropped out of college 2 times. So these were a lot of things, a lot of adversity that I had in my background. And as a cyber professional, the adversity that I experienced in those 6 months as a government employee triggered emotions and biases that I didn't know I had from my past, but I knew I needed to address them. So I went through my journey. And if you want to know more about my journey, you can see it in my book, Letters to My Brown Girls, 4 Phases to a Liberated Life Beyond Childhood Sexual Abuse. This book is representation of my journey to become aware of me by facing my fears, addressing my biases, identifying my trade-offs, and setting new boundaries and standards. When I completed my self-awareness journey in 2015, I identified who I was based on my new boundaries and standards. I identified the value that I bring to any mission, and I identified the value that I bring to this profession. And as a cybersecurity professional, you should know what makes you you. So to be effective in cyber, I ask that you take your self-awareness journey, because becoming aware of one's self is a journey. It's a journey that requires you being honest with yourself and will by far be the hardest challenge that you'll ever have to face in cyber. But that's what you have to do to be able to identify your path to becoming successful, the trade-offs, the biases, things like that that influence your reactions. Now, cybersecurity is a very fast growing profession, and it requires cybersecurity professionals to be open and honest about what it means to be in this profession. And that's what brings me to my last point. We must shape expectations about what it means to be a cybersecurity professional. And that's why I say representation matters. Most in our communities don't know what right looks like in this profession until they see it. And that's why I'm here, because representation does matter. See, as a woman, as a Black person, as a sexual assault survivor, as a teenage mom, coming from a low-income neighborhood, I never knew what right looked like until I migrated from the South up north. I didn't know what the possibilities were until I saw other women who looked like me doing it. And shout out to these brilliant, beautiful women who modeled the way for me and guides me through my career. These women were representation to me that I was not alone in my journey. See, this representation motivated me through the adversity that I experienced. So any chance I get, I speak to others about my background, what it takes to become successful in cybersecurity, and how to manage your mental health in the profession. And I do it because I know what representation meant to my career as a cyber professional and to my mental health. And I know that we cannot do it alone. We need a new generation to step up and take the reins on this. And I tell you, I'm tired. Arthritis is setting in, gray hair is coming, and I want to go to a beach and feel just a little bit safer knowing that some of you are out here taking the wheel. So to build the next generation, we must acknowledge the pillars for a successful cybersecurity career, the impact of the maturity level of a cyber program on our mental health, and the importance of representation in the cybersecurity profession. And with that, I want to say thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Cynthia Sutherland, and here are some of the links that will take you to my LinkedIn profile, my personal profile, and all the other stuff. Now, awesome. Let's see what questions we got, guys. All right. Okay. Let's see. Question. How did you break the glass ceiling between level 4? So let me go back to that slide. How did I break the glass ceiling between level 4 and level 5 on the leadership triangle? Currently there myself. Level 4 and level 5. Level 4 and level 5 was one that I kind of stalled at, Devin, for a second, because I realized that, like I said earlier, if you don't use a skill, you lose it. And if that transition between being a techie to becoming management, you're going to lose some of those tech skills because you won't use them. You'll be gaining new skills. And so that's where you focus on making sure that you have those project management skills, those people skills, and learning how to know your tone and learning that emotional intelligence on how to handle your staff and speak to people. I had a situation where this guy who was very upset with the fact that he broke policies and procedures, but I confronted him and said, hey, you've broken this policy and procedure. And he got very irate. He jumped up in my face. He's 6'2", he was 6'2", and I'm only 5'4". He got up in my face and he started saying all these mean, hurtful things. And so I explained to him what the policy was, the process was. I backed out and I walked away. And then when our government manager came in, he asked, well, Cynthia, do you want me to fire him? And I said, no, because he probably just had a bad day at home. He's probably dealing with some things at home. These are the type of things that you have to deal with in level 5. So being able to manage people was the biggest part of that for me as well. So I'll step back and summarize this by saying, 1, learning how to let go of some of the tech skills, because you need to focus now on management skills is key, and then understanding emotional intelligence of the human. And I will say one of my favorite books that I used at that time was The 1 Minute Manager. That helped me with my transition as well. So Devin, hopefully I was able to give you some feedback there. Do you have a mentor throughout your 16 years of work? If so, how did they challenge you? They challenged me to be better than them. And I have a competitive spirit. But yes, I had two main mentors throughout my life. And the one mentor that I had, he was a mentor because he helped me on not just a cyber professional perspective, but also from a spiritual perspective, as well as being a parent. So, you keep mentors, long-term mentors, because they provide you so much more than just the professional side. And like I said, they challenged me to be better than them. And, even as a parent, right, we look at our children and I know for me, I challenge my children to be better than me. Not in the profession, but just take what I've gotten to take what I've given them and build from that. And that's what I've seen. That's what my mentors have done for me. Learn where they are and then build for that. And then when you get to a point and your mentor comes to you and says, now I'm the student, that is very special. And I had that happen to me 2 times. How do you go about building your squad and your mentors? Like I said before, one, from a mentor perspective, identify what is it that you need. You can't go to a mentor and say, hey, I need you to help me fix my life. That's not how this works. You need to go to them to tell them and ask them specifically what you need. Are you struggling in a specific area of cyber like management? Are you struggling with budgeting? Like, you have to go to them to identify what you have to go to them to tell them what your gaps are and talk to them about what your gaps are. And if they can help you, they will. But if they can't, they'll point you to someone else who will. And I've had that happen as well, where I had a mentor said, you know what? I don't know about this. Let's go talk to someone else. And so that was very helpful for my mentor. And that just showed that they had been a mentor for a long time as well. As far as building your squad, my squad typically at work, from a professional perspective, has always started at work with my coworkers and my team members. We would, piggyback off of each other, because I wholeheartedly believe in collaboration over competition. And I believe that what's for me is for me. And so I don't see others as competition. I see others as ways for us to make each other better. And so that's one of the things I talk about. It's collaboration over competition, because you don't know what you don't know. And so I would say taking collaboration over competition, as well as finding people who help help build you from where you are, keep you grounded, but also build you up. I will say one of the things that I like about working for Amazon Web Services is their leadership principles. Our leadership principles, one of my favorite leadership principles at Amazon is having backbone to disagree and commit. And everyone has the ability to disagree and commit in a constructive, in a creative manner that provides feedback for everyone, so that we all can grow. So I love that part of it. And then I like how in Amazon, we also have our escalation process, where the escalation process is not about pointing fingers to see who's wrong or who's right. It's about identifying what the key root of the issue is so that we can all grow and become better. And so I would say learning the culture of an environment is also key to helping you grow as well. How do you measure the effectiveness of your cybersecurity program? And what metrics do you use to track progress over time? Great question, Ronnie. So here's what I would tell you. When you're looking at the effectiveness of a cybersecurity program, one of the things that I look at is how, one, are your processes and procedures documented, right? Because you can tell people to go do something, that means that they're doing it based on their interpretation of it. I would say set the baseline for your processes and procedures in your environment. Setting that baseline will give people a level that they can grow to, or if they're already there, it allows those high-performing people to build from that process, and it allows you to help mature your program. So I look at the effectiveness of a cybersecurity program based on the process and procedures. One, from a technology perspective, I look to see what is the visibility of the tools that I have? Can that tool see across all of the environments? Is there some gaps that it does not see? How do we cover down on those gaps? I used to do things like pull out our asset inventory list, work with our service desk, server operations team to pull down Active Directory, pull all the Active Directory structures out to identify all the assets that they're seeing, and then compare that to what I see on my tools. I would work with an ISP service provider to get all of the IP scopes and then do a Nessus scan across those scopes to make sure that I'm capturing the assets as seen by IPs, and then match them up with your continuous monitoring tools and all the other different tools that you may have. That helps you identify if you have visibility across your environment. Because what is the purpose of you sitting here pushing out and troubleshooting your patching tools if your tools don't see all of the assets? Now it's a lot of work that's being done, and especially if there's even assets on the network that does not even need to be there. So these are the different things that I look to do when I go to baseline a program to identify how effective it is. Ronnie, did I answer your question? Is there any other questions? Let's see here. No more questions? No problem, Ronnie. Sunshine, Devin. Let's see. Is there any other questions anyone else has? I don't see raised hands. All right. Okay. Any other slides anyone else has any questions about or want me to go to? I have a hand. Yes, Ronnie. I don't know how to. Enoch, gracious. I have a question, a raised hand. I don't know. Enoch, gracious, can you guys? Yes, Ronnie.
I don't know if you can see it. I'm sorry, Dr. Sutherland. I don't know if you can see it. I wrote it in the chat.
How do you handle security incidents when they occur, and what steps do you take to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future? So this goes back to creating relationships for a lot of the key people across your organizations, because an incident we have a high probability that incidents do occur in an environment, and you want to be able to respond and in the most effective manner possible, in a timely manner. And so what I've done in the past was creating relationships with a couple of people. One, creating relationships with your server ops team, your net ops team, making sure you have clear lines of communication to whoever manages your crisis communications, whether that's with your help desk team, help desk manager, or if your organization has a crisis management person. Because one of the things that I've learned in the past is that if you, excuse the horn in the background, but one of the things that I've learned in the past is that when it comes to an incident, I will say that people talk a lot. I'll just say that much. People talk a lot. And so what can happen is that the message will get out about an incident and it will flutter around and it will change. You know how that people say, you say one message and by the time it gets to the 10th person, it's a totally different message. That is one of the things that you want to avoid. And so I would say making sure that you have your crisis team for incidents so that when it does happen, you can shape what that message looks like, and you can shape expectations from the customer community. And this helps reduce a lot of friction between you, your leaders, and your customers. So that's one thing on how to handle security incidents. How do you make the determination that you wanted to transition to the C-suite? Interesting, Christopher. I thought that's what I wanted. I thought that I wanted to be the person that runs an entire cyber portfolio. And when I got there, it was everything I wanted, but then I found out that there were some things that I still needed to do. And so I stepped back out of the C-suite, because when I got there, I remember I was developing my acceptance speech to be the CISO for FEMA. And I was looking around and I felt that there were some people that I wanted to be there, but they weren't there. And the people that I wanted to be there were the people that I wanted that looked like me, because I wanted to give them the same conversation or the same speech that we're having right now, because I know how sometimes it's a challenge to get to that C-suite. And so for me, I stepped back out of the C-suite because I needed to do my book. I needed to start my nonprofit. And so I've done all those things. And now when I want to go back, I can go back. And so the determination that I made to get there was the fact that I just love every aspect of cybersecurity. I love the policy. I love the workforce, risk management. I love the SOC. But I also know that in certain points of your life, you don't want to keep going in a 24/7 operations. And so that's one of the reasons why I kind of stepped back for a minute, because there are some things that I wanted to do. And maybe in another 5 years, I may go back. But right now I'm doing things like this. And this is what I love doing. Do you know someone who is new to cybersecurity to get into PCI DSS? Do you suggest going into some other aspect of cyber first, or is it possible to go this route as a cyber newbie? Do you know how someone who is new to cybersecurity can get into PCI DSS? Here's what I will tell you. When it comes to a regulation or standards, such as PCI DSS, you want to be familiar with those specific regulations or standards. You want to be familiar down to the T, because when you're in cyber, your overall job is to, one, potentially develop policies and processes to match that regulation or standard. Number two, execute technologies to enforce that regulation or standard. And so you want to make sure that you get familiar with that language or standard for any regulation that you want to get into, any standard that you want to get into. Do you suggest going into some other aspect of cyber first? For me, I would tell people that's interested in cyber that doesn't have a tech background to always start in cyber policy, because policies, processes, those are the words on the paper, those are the laws, those are the strategic direction that your overall organization should be going to from a cyber perspective. So I always advise people, like even with, secretaries that I've met that want to get into cyber, I say start with cyber policy development first, because that technology, once you get to that technical aspect, being able to configure your firewalls, your antivirus, and all of the gateways, all these other tools, you have to be able to configure it based on what has been approved and supported by your senior leaders and by law. Because one of the things, when I get to one of the most extreme cases I've seen is that you have some person who has configured the technology to do something, and then an incident happens, and now this person has to report to the legal team about how they did it, because that case has to go to court. Now this person is in the hot seat because they did something that wasn't approved by management. So that's why I always say start with cyber policy first and work your way through, because you don't want to be on that other end of answering questions on why you did something that wasn't approved by management. All right, so we have 3 minutes left. No problem, Nina. Other than that, guys, I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much. James, Enoch, Gracious, is there anything else that you guys want to do before we drop? Nope. Awesome. All right, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming and attending today, and have a good rest of your conference. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Cynthia. Thank you for this wonderful session. Hello?
Sorry, who said that? Gracious, that was you?
Yeah, that was me. Thank you a lot for this session.
No
Sorry.
problem, no problem.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Is there anything else you need from me before we drop?
No, I think that'll be all. If we don't have more questions, and we just have 2 more minutes, so thank you a lot.
No problem. Let's see, we still have 8 people that's left around.
Yeah.
Hey Val, how are you? I don't see any other questions. Let me see, there's nothing in the chat.
Yeah, nothing.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.